Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Albuquerque Aliens Draft to Glory franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we kind of had a tough matchup with the Calgary Flames in the conference finals and unfortunately lost to them. But in the same stretch, I'm not too worried about that because obviously the Calgary Flames went on to win the Stanley Cup, which is nice to see because Jamison Bogosian, who was a top 6 center of ours at one point in time, went on to win his first Stanley Cup in his career, so at least there's a positive there. But yeah, it was definitely a really tough series for us. We just could not find our offense consistently, and we ended up losing in 5 games despite knocking out the best team in the NHL the round before in the Chicago Blackhawks. So we lost 3-0, 4-0, so at that point, obviously not scoring a single goal in the first 2 games, both on home ice, you kind of feel like you're definitely going to lose. We then responded with a 4-3 win, so at that point I was thinking maybe this team could start to come back. Well, we then lost a game in overtime, so that game, like I said, was a pretty crucial game. If we would have tied it up, then it would have been a best of 3, but unfortunately we lost, and then obviously they pushed us to the brink. And then in game 5 they managed to outscore us 4-1, so it was kind of unfortunate that we lost, like I said, in the conference finals because that was the second consecutive season that has happened. But I was really impressed that Jamison Bogosian went on to win himself a Stanley Cup because after he left us, I wasn't too sure how much of a career this guy would have. But he has had a pretty solid career, I'd say, a little bit since leaving us. And now he's a Stanley Cup champion, which is pretty damn sick for 2040. So not too long after our team wins the Stanley Cup, he manages to win one. But you can see that he's only had 3 years in the playoffs. He made the playoffs like 2 times with us. Then obviously left us because he was going to be demanding too much. And then he ends up going on to the Carolina Hurricanes for less than half a season. Or actually for half a season, I should say. Then goes to Calgary via trade. I don't remember what that trade was, but he was there for obviously for a number of years, and he finally wins the Stanley Cup at the age of 33. So shout out to Jamison Bogosian. At least the Calgary Flames had him on the team. If they didn't have him on the team, maybe I would feel a little bit more sour about that loss. But like I said, former players winning a Stanley Cup in this franchise mode is kind of fun to see as well. But anyways, before we get into another offseason, because we have draft and re-sign stage and all that stuff, let's get in your guys' comments and see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll get into making some probably tough decisions with the re-sign stage and all that. So the first comment is from Michael Dose, who says, Flames burned the aliens up. I wouldn't bring back Norena, too high cost, and Mahalik can also go too. I'd draft Karlotti in the first round. So he's saying to actually let go of Norena and Mahalik. So that's basically a consensus across a lot of comments, which we'll get to those other comments in a little bit. But a lot of you guys actually think we should be letting go of Norena, which is kind of interesting because I was contemplating bringing him back just because obviously he's been a career-long Albuquerque alien. He's been a really solid offensive defenseman. The only thing for him is obviously his demand might be a bit too high when we get to the re-sign stage, because if we look right now, you can see that he thinks that he's worth over $11 million, which with our cap situation is pretty much most of the cap we'll probably have left, I would assume. So I don't really know if we could justify paying him that $11 million. Now, if his money comes down when we get to the re-sign stage, maybe we could bring him back. But for right now, there is a high chance that we might end up losing him, which is kind of unfortunate. Like I said, I kind of wanted him to wrap up his career here if possible. But it does make sense to let go of him probably because we do have guys like Hutton who could be making the jump this season as a top 4 defenseman. He was in the AHL last year, had 16 points, minus 45, which is pretty damn dreadful, over 100 penalty minutes. But this guy obviously deserves a chance to play on our NHL team next year. So if we do let go of Norena, basically Hutton would jump into the top 4. If we let go of Mahalik, who has been a little bit more injury prone, we could obviously, we have other defenders we could be drafting, like Karlotti, for instance, who could jump to the NHL potentially right away. Depends on his overall when we draft him. But yeah, there is a chance that we could be letting go of Mahalik too, despite him being an RFA at the end of the season. There's a chance I might end up letting go of Lee as well. Like, this defensive core might go through a bit of changes completely for next season. Aside from that, though, I think obviously our forward group and our goaltending group might stay the same, but will be interesting to see what this team's looking like going into next season. Hopefully we don't get too much drop-off again from our also top guys like Ristolainen, Kolarz, and Staubitz, because obviously all these guys are getting a little bit older. Kolarz I don't think will drop for a few more years, but Staubitz and Ristolainen could drop throughout this season, which is a bit worrisome. So there might be a little bit of regression from this team this upcoming season, potentially. The next comment is from Sound Otaku, who says, it wasn't a sweep, but it was very close. You simply got goalied. This is painful to say, but I would let go of Narena and Mahalik walk. The former is too expensive, and the latter is too injury prone. That said, I wouldn't argue if you decide to keep Narena. Take Carlotti with your first round pick and go off the board for McLeod and Krejcik with the second and third. Don't forget to hire a coach and replace the one who retired. So yeah, we do need to replace that coach that retired, and I did look already as a goalie coach as expected, so we will find ourselves a new goaltending coach this offseason, which kind of sucks, but we have to seem to do it every single offseason. But yeah, he's also saying about letting go of Narena and Mahalik potentially, and I think I agree with it. For the most part, I could see why, because obviously Narena could strap us down too much cap-wise. Meanwhile, Mahalik, obviously, he's been pretty injury prone. Like, he missed the entire playoffs 2 years ago. And in this year, he missed, I think it was, did he miss the most of the playoffs as well? I think he did. I don't even remember, to be honest, how much games he's played. But he's had, like, a solid time here for the most part. But he just can't find a way to stay healthy, which is the main concern with him. Because if we go to Mahalik's stats, for instance, you can see only 2 playoff games this year. He's actually currently still injured in June, which is pretty funny. But if we go to his stats here from the playoffs, you can see he missed the entire 2038-39 playoffs. He was on the cup-winning team, though, at least, which is good. But obviously, he's missed a lot of playoff action the last 2 years. Regular season, he's also missed a few games, but not as much. But he's definitely not a guy that could stay healthy for most part of his career, which is very unfortunate, considering he's one of our right defensemen. He doesn't shoot right, but he's also on that right side. So he technically does make our defense a bit stronger, but he might be let go of this offseason just because he can't stay healthy and he might demand too much money. But there is also good replacements in terms of the draft, because obviously Sound Otaku and Michael were both mentioning about Carlotti with the first round pick. Well, Carlotti looks like a very intriguing defenseman. He is a right defenseman as well, so pretty similar in that sense to Mahalik. However, he's probably going to be a better potential. He's also listed as NHL ready, so I think Carlotti will obviously just basically replace him, and that will give us somebody that might not be as injury prone. So excited about that. And then we also had Sound Otaku mention about Ryder McLeod, who is a low lead offensive defenseman. And then he also was mentioning about Krejcik, who is a low lead sniper. So likely we're going to obviously be taking Carlotti, McLeod, and Krejcik. There might be a chance that we get some of these other guys too, but this draft class has some decent steals, and we're just going to be going off the board a little bit with most of our picks in this first draft. The next comment is from Garage TV, who said, you did pretty much what I was talking about. I think it's time to say goodbye to Narena and Lee as well. Bring up to Omainen. He's 24 and a right shot. And first round pick, I would take Carlotti, right-handed defenseman. So he's saying to let go of Narena and Lee. So Lee's kind of an interesting one. Like I said, I don't know if I'd bring him back either. It really depends on his asking price and what our defensive core potential looks like going into next season. But as of right now, Lee is trying to get $4.5 million, which is quite a bit for a 79 overall. When you compare that to Narena, who is making once $11 million as an 84. So I definitely don't think Lee would come back at that asking price. If his asking price drops and stuff like that, maybe we'd bring him back. But as of right now, he does not want an extension either, which is an important thing. So there is a chance that we lose at least like 2 to 3 defensemen this offseason, depending on what we do. And like I said, at least we'll have some good young defensemen that we draft in this year, episode, like Carlotti, who could probably end up making an impact next season. But aside from what he was saying, also, he was saying bringing up Tuomainen. Now, Tuomainen's kind of an interesting one. He's only a 69, though, at 24. He's obviously got the medium elite potential, but he hasn't been developing that well, which is unfortunate. He is an offensive defenseman, but he doesn't really look that great on paper. In terms from an AHL perspective, he's only played one AHL year with 22 points at this point in time. I guess we healthy scratched him in 2039, but I just don't think this guy's worth having in the NHL, even though he does have the potential to become something. I just don't think he's going to be useful. There is some other right defensemen that might end up making it, like Kavasha, who was a first-round pick. We do have Segal, who could potentially crack our lineup. It's like a depth option. We do still have Ackerstrom as well as another defenseman. He's not a right-handed shot, but he could potentially be a depth defenseman, same with Janicki. There's kind of a logjam down there of random defensemen, but I'm hoping that some of them start to pan out, because it seems like our prospect pool is getting a little bit, like they're not growing as fast as I would like. Some players are, but other players not so much. So we'll see what we end up looking like in terms of the defensive core next season. And last and final comment is from Andrew Hallworth, who says, you need to have conversations with your players and get them to play a certain line fit. It will help with chemistry. And to be honest, I don't know if I really care too much about getting the chemistry super spot on with this team. It has been pretty solid for the most part. Like, it would be good to get everybody to fit our coach and try and get that another Stanley Cup. But at the same time, for me, if we don't get another Stanley Cup, it's not really a huge issue and stuff like that. I'm just more trying to look and see what we get in terms of player production and stuff like that. Like, I'm curious on how these careers are going to wrap up. But obviously, we will try and still be making the playoffs and all that. But like I said, I just don't feel like I need to necessarily have conversations unless there's players that are dropping off and we don't want them to drop off in certain areas. So we'll see what we end up doing in terms of conversations if we do any more going forward. But for the most part, a lot of these guys are at the point where they'll definitely start to drop off. Most of them probably won't get a lot of growth. Well, a couple of them maybe like Dunham, Hutton, Hunwick. Like, we could definitely do those type of conversations with guys that still could grow a little bit, maybe. But aside from that, these old guys, I don't really know too much if I'm going to do anything with that. Like, I feel like we fit this coach pretty well anyways, so it's not really a huge issue if we make ourselves even better of a fit for this coach at the moment. So with that said, I think we're ready to get into this year's draft. I am interested to see how good these prospects that we're potentially drafting in are going to be. And I'm also interested to see how much Narena is actually going to ask for, because I feel like his asking price will probably change by the re-sign stage, but I'm not too sure if he's going to be demanding more money or if he's going to just go for less money or what. But like I said, I could potentially bring him back. I might bring him back, but I'm not too sure on that. Mahalik, on the other hand, since we could draft ourselves another right-handed defenseman, we don't necessarily need to hold on to him. But we are going to be losing a couple players this offseason anyways with like Hennessy and all that, because Hennessy is probably going to demand too much money and all that type of thing. So anyways, let's see what we got in terms of the drafts. So the Rangers, Ottawa, Buffalo, Sharks, and the Avs have the top 5 picks in this year's draft. Obviously, we're all the way back here at number 31. Was it? Yeah, it was number 31. So I am very hopeful that we could get that low elite defenseman that we were mentioning. Carl Lottie could potentially, and I guess he wouldn't go earlier. It was the Ferrelli guy that could go earlier. Ferrelli is also kind of intriguing, but there is a good chance he goes before our selection. But since Carlotti's a right-handed defenseman, that's why it's more intriguing to us, because we don't have a lot of right-handers. He kind of is exactly what we need, and that's the same with like guys like McLeod as well. It would be also nice to bring in Krejcik just to give us maybe a bit more goal scoring in the future. Like, some of these guys might not play a lot before the end of the series, but we still might as well bring them in. And then there's some other options too, which are kind of intriguing, like Peterman, for instance. He's already 20 years old as a low elite, though, so he's probably going to be a high overall, potentially, but I don't know if he's going to develop that well. And then there's also Pagaduin as well, who could be low elite. So there is a lot of guys in this draft who could end up being pretty solid. Hopefully we find a good amount of steals in it, and obviously that could help our team with our depth problem going into next season. All right, so let's take a look at what the top 5 of this year's draft are going to be. So the Rangers have first overall. What are they going to select? Clarkson. What's his first name? Rick Clarkson. Sounds like an old man. 87 shooting across the board. Good sniper. Yeah, pretty good. Big rig. Big rig for a 5'9" guy is actually pretty cool, though, to be honest. Make it snappy as well. So that's what Rick Clark is looking like. He should be a pretty good player. Like, he doesn't really have any weakness other than his fighting skill, but why do you need a sniper to fight? I don't think so. So 83 overall to the draft for him. The Sens at number 2 are going to select Kronwall. Interesting. Matthias Kronwall. Does he hit? Kind of. Not really, but he's a sniper as well. And yeah, he doesn't really have any weakness other than his fighting skill, as you'd expect. So solid pick there for Ottawa. No X factors for him, though. Buffalo at number 3 is going to select Angelidis. Noah Angelidis. Okay. Playmaker. So he's the first playmaker off the board. Looks pretty balanced again. Once again, that fighting skill is always at a 69, it seems like, with these top 5 selections. All alone relentless is his abilities. Interesting. And he's an 81. So technically, the Sens maybe should have went for Angelidis, but maybe they just wanted the goal scoring and not the setup performance of Angelidis. Not too sure. But there's your top 3. Let's see what the Sharks grab at 4. Keeler. Keeler is an 81 overall right wing 2-way forward, so the first right winger off the board. Blake Keeler. Interesting. Has a little bit better fighting skill since he's a 2-way. All right. Yeah, pretty balanced player. really good skating, actually. Like his acceleration, agility, all that is 88. So this is a pretty solid draft so far for the most part. That guy also has big rig as a 5'11" guy, which is pretty sick. So seems like some of these shorter guys are getting big rig, which is kind of neat to see, because usually I would assume that's more for a big guy that's like 6'4" and above. But interesting. And Colorado at 5 is going to take the first defenseman of the draft, which is Ray Garvin. Offensive defenseman, left-handed shot. Has actually a pretty damn good shot power. His accuracy is already getting better too. No real weakness other than obviously his physical attributes for the most part. So there is your top 5 of this year's draft. I don't think these guys are going to make a huge impact before the end of the series, but they'll at least have some parts of their career that we'll get to see in this series. So that's interesting. All right, let's simulate to our pick at 31 and see what goes before our selection. See if there was any good steals here. Javi Bullen's not a good steal. Fuji, Kabanov. Looking for any crazy steals, which usually doesn't happen in the first round. It's usually outside of the first round, I feel like. Because this is pretty basic, like top 6 forwards and all that at this moment. Some high 71 overall guys. 77 for Conklin's pretty decent for a 12th overall selection as a top 6 forward, I would say. He is a two-way forward, so he's not going to be maybe huge offensively. There's a good steal at 11 in Sweat, who is a medium elite sniper. So the Penguins might have got somebody decent there. Aside from that, high top 6D going 9th overall. That's a pretty bad pick, I would say, for the Bruins. And then Ramo went 8th overall. Tamara, Hargrave. Yeah, it's pretty basic outside of the top 5 for the most part. All right. Well, this is going to be probably the best steal so far of the draft. There is still Ferrelli on the board, so Ferrelli is still available. But obviously, we want the right defenseman in Carlotti, who looks like he is going to be a stud. The question I have, is he going to be actually a low elite, or is he going to be a medium 4? I feel like one of these guys is going to be a low elite. The other one's not going to be a low elite. I hope that obviously Carlotti's the low elite, considering he's a right defenseman. But regardless, this guy's going to be playing on our defensive core probably next season, just because that will help us a lot out in terms of that right-hand side. So Timo Carlotti from Tappara Tampere, I want to say. Let's see how good he is. 73. Damn, that's actually lower than I expected, because I was hoping he would jump to the defensive core next season. I thought it would be like a 78. So a little bit off the board on that one. And he is only medium 4, so not as good as anticipated, but I mean, it's still a pretty good steal for the point, I guess. I was just hoping that he would be a lot better. I just don't know if I would run him on our defensive core next season now. And that might make a decision with bringing back Mahalik for like a 1-year deal or something like that. Because this guy is probably not ready to make that jump yet, and I don't feel like I want to rush him either. So I honestly might have to re-sign somebody out of the defenders that we were potentially letting go of, just because Carlotti's not as good as advertised. He is good, but he's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. All right, let's see what Columbus grabs at 32. They take Afanaganov, and Calgary at 33. What did they end up getting? Did they end up getting that other defenseman? No, they did not. They got a guy named Keeling. Okay. Let's see what that other defenseman was like. Yep, he was the low elite. I knew one of them was going to be a low elite. So maybe we should have gone for Ferrelli, but at the same time, I feel like we got the higher overall defenseman. Not necessarily the better potential, but this guy's only a DFD, so who knows? 17 years old. Trevor Ferrelli. Washington gets him. Okay. Well, I still think we made a pretty solid selection, but obviously was hoping for a little bit better. Let's go through our rest of this second round that went before ours, and then obviously we're going to keep going off the board a little bit, because obviously the next selections are going to be like McLeod and Krejcik. So let's see what went before our second rounder here, if there was any steals. A lot of low 4s and low 6s for the second round, which has me a bit concerned that this draft class isn't as good as it was seeming. There's a medium elite goaltender in Fernandez. Anything else? A low elite in Vico. So a good steal there for the Devils, 18th pick in the second round. What else we got here? Anything else? Not a medium 9s. This draft class actually might not be that strong, which is kind of weird, because I thought it was definitely going to be a lot better than this. All right. Well, at least we have some guaranteed low elites that we had pins, so we will be able to find some steals in here, but not as strong for sure. So Krejcik's not supposed to go to 152, so I guess we'll go with McLeod next. And then we'll go with Krejcik. Technically, I could probably get Peterman right now and then get McLeod next round. Yeah, that actually might be okay too. I might honestly go with the Peterman here, even though he's 20 years old, just because it gives us another right-handed defenseman. And then we could grab McLeod with the next pick after that. And then Krejcik. Would I be able to get him that next round after that? I'm trying to think. Let me actually call a timeout for a second, just because I want to do the math here for a second. Because we're currently... what pick are we in this round, technically? We're like right around... Yeah, we're 64th. So, technically... Our next selection would be 31 selections from now, which is 95. So we would be able to get McLeod. Our next selection after that would be 31 selections after 95. So let me think what that equates to. My calculator. Let's see, because I just can't do the math right now. 95, wait, and 31, I think I know what it is. Yeah, 126. So we should be able to get Krejcik as well with that next selection afterwards. I think I could literally probably go Peterman, McLeod, Krejcik. And then maybe afterwards Packaduin would still be available. I honestly don't think he would. But we'll probably just go off the board here and first take Peterman just because this guy could be almost NHL ready as well. Might as well give ourselves another right-handed defenseman too, right, while we're at it. So, yeah, we'll go for Peterman here. And then we'll go with McLeod with the next selection because we will have a pick before he goes off the board, I think. So, Michael Peterman, welcome aboard. 66 overall, not bad. Pretty solid starting point, but he is 20, like I said. So, I don't know if this guy's going to become anything crazy for us, but at least it gives us more depth potentially for our defensive core as we go later into the series, because obviously that's where we're kind of a little bit weak anyways. Let's send him to 97 now. We should be able to get that offensive defenseman now that we were looking at. Let's see. Yep, there he is. Nice. Packaduin is still available as well, but we're probably not going to be able to get him. We'll probably be able to get Krejcik instead. So Ryder McLeod's going to be the next selection. 18 years of age. Offensive defenseman. He's definitely way out of the NHL, but at least it gives us a guy that could potentially drive our offense in the future, potentially, if he makes the NHL. So Ryder is a 54 overall, so pretty low point for him. But he at least has some good potential to become something decent. So far, at least we're finding some good steals, I would say. But it's definitely not the strongest draft class as I was expecting. But there was a good steal there for Toronto. Duda, medium elite. Anybody else that was a good steal here in this round? Medium star, not bad, I guess. But yeah, this draft class is definitely not as good as it was advertised to be. I thought we would be getting like some crazy steals throughout this draft, but doesn't seem like there's that much. All right, let's eliminate to our next pick anyways at number 130. So here we should be able to grab the Krejcik guy, or we could go with Packaduin, but Krejcik's the guaranteed low elite here. They're both gems, which is interesting, but Packaduin's not guaranteed to be a low elite, and Krejcik is. So we are going to take Krejcik with the selection, which means we aren't going to be able to get Packaduin, which is okay, but I think Krejcik's kind of more what we need, a goal scorer. So let's just take Krejcik. And he is a 53 overall, not bad. So yeah, we are finding at least ourselves some good potential players. I do think this is still one of the better classes for us, but obviously a lot of these guys might be making it in the last few years of this franchise mode. Like, it's basically just to keep our team somewhat solid at the end of this franchise mode. But 3 low leads so far and a medium 4, which is pretty solid. So we do have still to make 3 more selections, which I honestly don't know what I'm going to go with at this stage. But let's see what Packaduin actually was like. Let me actually call another timeout here, because I do want to see what Packaduin was like if he was a low lead as well. Because we didn't have that guarantee that he was in low elite or what. Let's see. Packaduin was a low lead as well. Okay, so we didn't make the wrong decision for sure, but Packaduin also a pretty solid pick there for the Florida Panthers. He is a power forward. All right. Aside from that, no other low leads, but there is a medium elite goaltender in round 5. That's pretty solid for the Canucks. All right. Now let's see if we could find some actual good steals that we didn't have in mind, because we don't have anybody else left pinned. So we are probably going to continue going off the board here, I would assume. But none of these guys are in the guaranteed department. Some of these guys are supposed to get drafted, though, so maybe we take a chance on some of them. Must bulk up. Huh. 4 years out, 19 years of age. Andreas Schmidt. And I don't really know if I need any left defensemen. I feel like I've drafted a lot of defenders already in this draft class. Motzko's already 20. Do I want to take a chance on some of these guys? Maybe. Let's take a chance on Hagelin. I know he's a little bit older, but we might as well take a chance on this guy's actually a low elite. So Hagelin, low top 9. We aren't going to find too much steals here probably as the rest of this draft goes on, but is what it is. Is what it is. So let's simulate to our next selection here. See if there was any steals after Hagelin. See if there's anybody I was missing out on. I would assume there's at least like a low elite that we didn't see. Let's see. Beam bottom 6s. Damn, yeah, this draft class is kind of rough. But I think we at least came out with a decent selections in most of our selections, obviously. The low 9 was a risk, but yeah, not really anything good afterwards. Like Schmidt, if we would have taken him, was a low 7th D, so he definitely wasn't that low elite defenseman either. Alright, we could go for another goalie prospect potentially, I guess. Lewis Nichols, I don't know how good you are. Markkanen might be a low elite here. He is 20 years old already as well, but and maybe these older guys are going to have better starting points and it could help us down the road. So let's take a chance on another 20-year-old in Markkanen. And he was a medium 9. 58 overall, though, for 20-year-old is pretty bad. Like, by the time this guy gets his ELC, he's going to be like 24 years old, 23 years old. Alright, well, I didn't expect these last 2 rounds to be as good, but at least we hit early on, because I am at least impressed with those selections. So our last pick of this draft, what do we want here? Vijay, Dainton. Wait to see if there's any good attributes here. Potentially there with that guy with the 2 B minuses. Who was it? Pekka Tuppurainen, but he is 20 years old. So I don't know about that. Anybody else intriguing? Not really. And I don't know why it keeps on scrolling back down. That's kind of annoying. Yeah, I don't really see too much else. Let's just sort by potential. Mangone. 19 years of age. Dainton was there again. And then there's also Lucic, who isn't even supposed to get drafted in the slightest. He is also 20 years old, though. I guess we'll probably end up just going for Mangone, or we could go for Dainton. Maybe I'll go for Dainton, considering he's the only 18-year-old that's still left. So let's go with Dainton and see if he's going to be a low lead as well. And he's a low bottom 6, so nothing special there. Alright, yeah, this draft class was kind of mid. Moran, low lead, was a decent steal that we didn't see. But yeah, we got a lot of good hits early on, and then afterwards it just completely fell off. So that kind of sucks, but that's sometimes how these drafts are. So now we got to get to the re-sign stage. But I think, obviously, like I said, first 4 picks that we had, pretty good. But obviously, Hagelin, low 9, medium 9 in Markin, and Dainton being a low bottom 6 or whatever it was, not great. So those 3 guys probably won't ever get their ELCs. But the other guys, hopefully they get some good growth and can make an impact to our team near the end of the series. Alright, re-sign stage. This is going to be interesting. So I'm kind of curious, like I said, on how much money we're going to have to throw to Norena. Hopefully, like if I do want to hold on to Norena, hopefully he's not asking for a ton. But I'm not too sure still if we're going to hold on to him or what. Okay, we definitely need to get back our head coach, because our head coach has been a very solid fit here. So I definitely got to get this guy a boatload of money. There you go. Let's give you $8 million to stay with the team. Possible still as the AHL head coach. I mean, the AHL team actually did pretty rough last season, so I could always replace him. I'm trying to think. Yeah, you know what? I like go Pospisil. DeVries I'll bring back for the AHL. He actually wants to be an AHL head coach. Well, let's just give him the AHL head coach for the time being. Doesn't really matter too much with DeVries, but I will let go Pospisil because for some reason that AHL team had a really rough time last year, so we probably should try and upgrade the AHL coaching staff a bit. And then aside from that, do we have any scouts? Actually, we have to get the notification first on the scouts. Yes, there you go. We have a lot of scouts to bring back, as expected. So let's go through this list and see if there's anybody we need to bring back. We'll bring back all the scouts, obviously, but that's just more because we need to still draft relatively well as the rest of the series goes on, just in case we end up starting losing guys to retirement. Like, what are we going to do once Ristolainen and Staubitz are retired? Because likely those guys are going to be the first ones to go, which will definitely hurt our team a lot more than anticipated. Because those two guys have been fantastic the last like 5+ seasons, playoffs, regular season, all scenarios. Like both of them like are good in terms of like penalty killing, power play. Like they are very crucial pieces to this team. So I'm kind of worried for the stage when we start to lose those guys. But if we're lucky, maybe both of them play till they're like 40 years old, and then they don't retire before the series ends. But there's a good chance we'll lose at least one of them before the series decides to come to a close. Alright, do we got all our scouts almost back here? Scott, let's get you back. Weber? Is that Shea Weber still? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Shea Weber. And there you go. All the scouts have their contracts. That's good news. Alright, re-sign stage. We'll start by looking at the RFAs just because the RFAs are going to be easy to get back. But in terms of our unsigned guys, I mean, Stillman could get his ELC potentially already. I'm not too sure if I want to give Carlotti his ELC yet. We probably need defenders in the AHL. Let me just see here, for instance. Trying to see. Yeah, we could probably actually sign Carlotti for the AHL already. That might not be a bad idea. Because then maybe he makes the NHL soon enough. But yeah, he's definitely not ready to make that jump yet that I was expecting. Like I said, I thought he was going to be a 77 in NHL ready or something like that. But 73... he'll probably play in the minors next year, which at least will give us something good for the defensive core down there eventually. Stillman, 72 at 21. I could sign him too, potentially, for the AHL. And he is a grinder, though, so I don't think he's really going to pan out to be much. I'm going to just wait on some of these guys that are unsigned still for a bit, I think. Don't need to rush them into the minors just yet. Aside from that, we got a lot of RFAs. Let's go to the bottom of this list and just start signing the ones that are actually going to just want two-way contracts, because at least that's easy to get them back. But in terms of UFA AHLers, we might have to let go of some guys to free up some roster space. DeVoe, I'm going to give you a 1-year deal. Yeah, I'm not going to give some of these older AHLers multiple years. Sagan, you could take a 2-year deal, I guess, considering you're one of the better AHLers. Same with Segal. But, yeah, these three guys. Obviously, Delisle and Doig, I'd like to bring them back. I think Delisle would be a pending UFA at the end of the season, potentially. Yeah, he's a pending UFA at the end of the 2 years. I'm going to qualify him for now, but he's probably going to have one of his best years of his career at this point. And then we have Doig, who is also developing nicely. 2.425 is really not that bad for 1 year. Let's just do a qualifying offer as well. Try and get these guys for a little bit cheaper. Eric Halla, I was thinking about letting go of because Mathers is ready to take that backup job from him. Malkin's already getting close. As much as I like Eric Halla, I don't think there's a need for him. Because like I said, Mathers takes Eric Halla's spot. Malkin and Langwall run the AHL, basically. Because Malkin's definitely getting close to the NHL already, so we would have to let go of Eric Halla at some point. Right now, he's asking for only a 1-year deal. I mean, I could hold on to him as a depth option, if possible. Or I run like a 3-goalie system at the start of the year and see which goalie I want to hold on to. It's not a bad idea. I'm going to see if I could get him back. I probably would be able to get him back. Mahalik, on the other hand, I'm not too sure still if I want to bring him back or not. I know he is injury prone. He is still injured while we're trying to negotiate a contract with him, which is funny. He wants 3.325, which is quite high. We probably could qualify him, get from way less. But we might have to hold on to somebody like him on the defensive side of things. We'll see. Aside from that, let's let go of McCardle, who's unsigned. Woods, medium 6, 62 at 20, though. Woods is not really panning out, so I'm going to let go of him as well, even though he has potential. Lynn, 66 at 22 is pretty low for a 22-year-old, so I'm going to let go of him as well. Corso is going to come back, I think, for the AHL. Yeah, sure. Peterson's already 28. Beret's 31. Those guys are like fringe NHLers almost. I mean, I might as well hold on to them, but give them 1-year deals at least or something like that. Just to make it a little bit easier. I mean, I should probably free up some roster space but I would prefer to have some depth potentially in the NHL. Ackerstrom, what are you asking for? Oh, you actually want a one-way deal. That's kind of an interesting one. Because, like I said, he's been a good top 6 defenseman when he's played with us. Like, I think he's never been a minus player so far. Yeah, he's been really good defensively. Plus 12 in the playoffs, plus 19 in the regular season. Just not too sure if I want to give him a one-way deal. Malak, I obviously got to hold on to you. You want a dirt cheap contract, so you got it, man. Lambert, what about you? You've been a healthy scratch a while. You want a two-way contract. If you want to accept a two-way contract, that'll be happy with me. Okay, he takes it. Nice. All right. We actually have a good chunk of cap space still, surprisingly. And then obviously the tough decisions. I got to definitely bring back Heatley, I think, as the bottom 6 option. He wants a 2-year deal. Let me see if I can knock this down by 2 bars or so. Because I should be able to knock it down to around, maybe this point. We'll try 1875. But Lee, Ackerstrom, Norena, and Hennessy. Hennessy, I think, for sure has got to go because we don't have really the roster space on the forward group. Yeah, 7.555 is a lot of money. And he is kind of getting replaced anyways. Like, if we look at our forward depth chart, Ristolainen and Kohler Stubb, it's obviously top line. Kim, Peterson, and likely it would be probably Dunham on that top 6. Cashman, Doig, Delisle, Heatley, Lambert, Malak, stuff like that. Yeah, I think I can afford to let go of Hennessy here. And that's exactly what we were kind of expecting anyways, is to let go of Hennessy. So I think I'll leave him out of the equation. Norena is, like I said, an interesting one. Same with Lee, just because of our defensive depth. I don't want to make our defensive core too weak. Like, technically, if I let go of Norena, we'd have Bell, Tulipov, Hutton, and Hunwick as our top 4. And then we'd have Mahalik, and we would have to have a top 6 option. I might honestly hold on to Norena, I think, potentially. Now, the thing is, Hunwick and Hutton are both listed as top 4 defensemen. So they might complain about ice time if Norena is brought back. If we don't bring back Norena, Lee's only a top 6, which means everybody would be okay with their ice time. Mahalik could still come back too. I think I need to actually bring back some of these defenders that we were thinking of letting go just because of the money situation that we have left, and also because we need to have a defenseman because the defenseman that we drafted wasn't as good as advertised. So for sure we already have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it comes down to, we need to actually sign, probably 2 of the 3 guys here. And I'm not too sure. I feel like maybe Mahalik and Norena would be what I would bring in. Lee would probably get let go of. Let's take a look at what they're asking for first and foremost, because that's where it comes down to being super important. Ackerstrom could potentially play on our defensive core next season, though, too. He is a little bit of a low overall, but I do like him a bit better than Lee at times. Lee hasn't been a bad option at times either. Plus 24 last season. He's actually been one of our best defensemen in terms of plus minus and all that. So I can kind of see why he's asking for a good chunk. Yeah, 4.85 to me for a 79 is a bit too high, so I don't think I could technically bring him in. If I did let him go, I would have to sign Ackerstrom probably, Norena, and Mahalik maybe. What is Norena asking for? Ooh. That might actually make the decision a little bit easier to let go of Norena. It's a higher asking price than anticipated. Now, he does have a lot of organizational interest, but even if I dropped him down by 2 bars, how much money would that be? Let's see what I could get him potentially for. We might actually be able to get him back to closer to his old salary. If we drop him down by 2 bars, 10.45 for 3 years. Trying to think if that's a good idea or not. Because who's expiring in the next few years in terms of our team? Rick Him's the big one. Everybody else is signed for quite a while. Norena would be getting paid as much as Bell. Peterson's actually a free agent in a few years too. Kim and Peterson are the big ones. Losing both those guys would kind of suck for our forward group. Like, Rick Kim is important to get back, I feel like, and he's going to be pretty expensive coming up, I feel like. This is tough, man. This is tough. I knew this offseason was going to be a tough one, but maybe we bring back Ackerstrom, and Narena should maybe come back. I know he's asking for a ton, but I don't feel like Lee's worth his money he's asking for, and we probably need to bring back multiple defenders. Maybe if I let go of Narena, I could bring in Ackerstrom and Mahalik again for another season, since Mahalik's an RFA. And then we'd have basically 2 defenders to replace these 2 guys that are a bit more money prone. I feel like we won't even be cap compliant if I did let go of Narena almost, though. I'm not too sure. Wow. Okay, well, I think I'm going to hold on to Mahalik for sure just because he's an RFA. I'm just not going to give him what he's asking for. I know we were probably going to let him go because he's injury prone, but I'm going to qualify him. I think we need to have at least somebody like him. I am also going to qualify Heracala. He could be a depth goaltender, but I'm not too sure still on this. So let's advance today and see how much cap space we have left in terms of our RFAs and all that. So our coach is back, which is good news at least. And same with the AHL coach. But yeah, this is a really, really tough decision. And I wish I kind of had you guys almost like giving me answers as I did through this, because it's just a tough, tough choice. We have $30 million in cap space if we sign these 3 guys. These guys are going to be at UFAs eventually too, so that's a bit worrisome. But we probably, if we get them each signed for like $2 to $3 million, that's like an extra, I would say, like $6 to basically $9 million in cap space gone. So he'd be down to $24 to $21 million in cap space, which is probably under the cap. So I think we do technically need to bring back people just to be cap compliant too. And that's where I'm a little confused with this defensive core. So if I go to our defensive core technically on paper, let me look at this again here. So technically, we have Bell, Tulipov, Hutton, Hunwick. We have nobody else guaranteed. Well, actually, Mahalik guaranteed, I'd say now. So technically, we have 5 defensemen. We could use one of these 76s, like Ackerstrom, as a depth option. That's not a problem. So if I bring back Ackerstrom, that's an okay one. But we do not have another top defenseman. But these guys are all listed as top 4s. I feel like Lee's going to complain about ice time a bit. I'm thinking of potentially letting go of Lee and then bringing back Ackerstrom and Narena. Now, Narena, like I said, his asking price is high, but we could get it down, I think, a bit because of his interest in the organization. And then he will be getting paid pretty much the same as Bell. And it's only for 3 years, too, which is not terrible in terms of length. Like, if he wanted an 8-year deal, it'd be a lot worse. But since he only wants a 3-year deal, it's not as bad. We could always buy out the last year of his contract, too, potentially, right? So, I think I'm going to hold on to Ackerstrom for sure, just because it gives us a little depth defenseman. We are going to go only a 1-year deal with him, though. Maybe 1-year deal, I think, with him, which means we are going to have to give him a little bit more money. But he does have a lot of organizational interest, so I think I could drop this down to like 1.6. So we'll do that. I think I'd let go of Lee then, and then Narena for sure I want to bring back. Hennessy, I don't need him back, so I'm already going to go ahead and let go of Hennessy. He's only been with us for a few years, but yeah, 2 seasons. He's a pretty damn good player, but we don't have the realistic needs to sign him back. So 3 playoff seasons, only 2 NHL seasons. And yeah, we're going to let him walk just to free up some roster space. But best of luck to him in free agency. And like I said, I think I might honestly give Narena what he's asking for. I don't know if you guys are going to think I'm crazy for doing that. But at the same time, I think it's realistic that we bring him back and then let go of Lee instead. I just think if that defenseman we drafted was a lot better, I wouldn't re-sign Narena necessarily. But since he was way worse in terms of overall, Narena probably should get re-signed. So let's try and get him for less money, because he does have that organizational interest. I think I could drop him down a good chunk of money. I could probably drop him down to right around the same amount of money that we were giving to Bell, like just a little bit more, like $100,000 more. But 10.525 for a guy that picks up a lot of points, like that's not bad. He is going to drop off probably throughout this contract. That's also a worrisome thing. But to me, it's not a huge issue. Yeah, I think that might be fine. Let me actually change his modified no trade to a full-on no trade, because that will give also a little bit more interest too, because we obviously don't make trades in this series. So since he's a full no trade clause now, I might be able to knock him down even a little bit more so than that. Yeah, I think that could work. 10.325, no trade clause, and we'll see if he'll accept that. It's a lot of money to throw out when we don't necessarily have a ton of money, but I feel like he kind of deserves it, and he's also kind of like an important leader on this team. And if he accepts that, Ackerstrom accepts that, and then our RFAs accept everything, Lee, I think, is definitely one I could just let go of. Because I feel like a 79 is easier to be replaced by a 76 than having like a guy in the top 4 get replaced. So let's advance a day and see if Narena accepts that extension. Because if he does, that'd be absolutely awesome for our team. And it looks like he did resign. Well, I knew he was going to be interested in it, so that's good. That is good. So there it is. I know you guys were thinking of letting him go, but I think it was something that we had to do. If, like I said, if that draft pick was better, I probably wouldn't have brought him back, but I need to make sure our defense doesn't drop off so much. And then Ackerstrom also accepts a 1-year extension. We're down to $20 million in cap space. These 3 guys probably cost us $9 million of it. Technically, I could probably afford to bring back Lee for all in a 1-year deal, but I don't think it's necessary because our defensive core now for next season, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These guys are all top 4s, though. That's the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is the ice time. But I could probably give Hunwick top line PK or something. Give one of these guys also a top line PK. Like, I should be able to find a way to get these guys extra ice time. And then aside from that, the top 6 pairing is going to be a bit weaker. And then we do still have Mahalik, who's injury prone, which is a bit worrisome. But Ackerstrom, we have Janicki, Seagal. Like, all these guys could kind of fight for those spots. So I don't think it's a huge issue. And like I said with the goaltending, Harakala and Mathers, basically I could have them duel it out in the preseason next year. And we could decide on one as their backup. And the other one could go down to the minors for another year. But probably be a scratch. That's the only thing. Because I don't want Malkin not being the starter, I don't think. So I think that's all pretty good. UFAs are dealt with. It lets us make our Sarah goodbyes to Lee. He's been a good defensive defenseman, but I just don't think he's worth that type of money he's asking for. And yeah, hopefully he has a good time wherever he signs. We'll definitely take a look at where he signs next episode, but he's also going to hit the free agency just like Hennessy is. Okay. Well, some interesting decisions. Everybody else will obviously probably accept their qualifying offers, but I am interested to see what this team's going to look like. But first, we obviously have to get into some coaching signings because we do need to sign ourselves a new AHL head coach. We also need a goalie coach. We'll also actually take a look at free agents in this episode just in case there's any former players available that can maybe give us more depth. But I think right now we might be good. So we actually also did lose the AHL assistant coach. Apparently he didn't actually accept that contract. I thought he did. But we do need some new AHL coaches, which is not necessarily a bad thing because a lot of our prospects had a tough time defensively last season. So let's go to coaching staff and hire ourselves some new coaches, especially that goalie coach for the NHL, just because obviously we want to simulate good. So if we go teaching, we'll bring in this person, Milan Hayduk. Shout out to Milan Hayduk, who looks nothing like Milan Hayduk. That's actually kind of hilarious. I got to get a screenshot of that. There's no way I can't. That's hilarious. Just for the memes. Okay, let's get Milan Hayduk as that goaltending coach, just because Milan Hayduk in real life was a sniper, not a goalie, but we'll bring him in. So there's that dealt with. We need an AHL head coach, an assistant coach. Let's actually just go to AHL head coaches. Anybody that fits potentially our AHL team well. 10%. It's really tough to tell in the offseason always how good these coaches actually fit your team. Maybe we'll go for a 12%er, I guess, then. That's a defense first coach. That might be an okay one for the assistant coaching job. Maybe I'll just bring in the best available. So let's just bring you in as assistant coach instead. Apparently Bakersfield's also interested, so screw you, Bakersfield. We're going to win this. And then we also need an AHL head coach. Let's find somebody, like I said, with a higher team fit. So we already just gave you a contract. Let's see. There's another 12%er, but a physical coach, which I don't think I want a physical coach. Let's go with Edgar Pacioretty as the head coach. Manitoba and Ontario are also interested, so we'll try and get him snagged up here. And hopefully that gives us ourselves better results in terms of chemistry and all that. We should have probably looked into teaching grade on some of these guys, but I mean, they look okay. A-, and the other one was a C. Oof, that's not as good. He might end up being an assistant instead. We'll see what ends up happening, but that's good. Let's go to the free agent group, just in case there's any former players I want to take a look at that are free agents. Like, I'm kind of curious if Bogosian's back in free agency. Not that we necessarily need somebody like him, but let's see if any former guys are going to be out there. Which in the goalie department does not really look like it, unless it's some low-end goalie that used to play with us. Defensively, don't see... there's Lee, of course. We'll see where he signs. Maybe I'll actually take a look in this episode where he signs. We'll see. We will see. Aside from that, I don't see any other former defenders that play with us. Right wingers, any former guys that play with us. There's obviously Hennessy, who has 4 teams interested. So Hennessy's going to be probably a good signing for whoever picks him up. Honestly, he could have been a good player to bring back, but at the same time, I feel like our roster is a little bit of a logjam right now. So that's why I let him go. Aside from that, left wingers, let's see. Any former players? Oh, Mark Dagg's back in free agency. I honestly forgot I let go of him. Where did he sign last year? Oh, he was in Boston. All right. So he left us, signed in Boston, and played only 37 games, but had 13 points, which is almost a career high. So looks like he fits that Boston mold, kind of like Mark Kastelik does, which is interesting. Had 2 short-handed goals in that span, too. So shout out to Mark Dagg for finding another home. And now he's going to be a free agent again, so we'll see where he ends up going. Aside from that, don't see anybody else, I don't think. Centers. Jamison Bogosian is in a free agency. So after winning the Stanley Cup, Calgary did not re-sign Bogosian. He's trying to get a 3-year deal at 5.5. Probably because he had 46 points there and 11 points in the playoffs. But obviously we won't bring back Bogosian, but good to see him testing free agency and maybe getting himself some solidity for the rest of his career somewhere else. So a couple former players in free agency. Love to see it. I think that's all I need to do before we sim up to next season. Now, I know you guys were mentioning about the offseason focus stuff, I think, and just like the conversations. I don't feel like we necessarily need to do that with a lot of these guys, just because we are a bit of an older team. I could do it with these like Hutton and Hunwick, so let's go actually do some conversations with these guys, because these guys are still young. But let's just try and get them to play stronger defensively, just because they are defensive defensemen, I believe. And we want to make sure that we can become a really good defensive team still, too, with their additions. Like, I'm kind of interested to see what Hutton can do this year on the defensive side of things. And we'll also do one for Hunwick and for Dunham, too, I guess, on the forward side of things. But it will be interesting to see how good this team's looking like. I feel like we're definitely going to be still a strong team, regardless of who we lost this offseason. But obviously, who knows how we're going to simulate. So let's just get everybody better on defense. Apparently, they're already pretty good on it. There's still a little bit of room for improvement, so these guys might not even grow that much, but is what it is. And in Dunham, he's a two-way forward, so he's kind of an interesting one. We might as well try and get him to be better offensively, considering he's in our top 6. So we might as well get his offensive awareness a little bit higher and see if he could start becoming what basically Hennessy was like in that top 6 for our team. All right. So all that is good. I think that's all I would do in terms of conversations this offseason. So let's begin the sim up to next season and see what we're working with. Is Milan Hajduk is in as the NHL goalie coach, which is still hilarious. Pacioretty decided to reject the offer as the AHL head coach, so we do need another coach. And Krejcik is on board as the assistant coach in the AHL, so we do need to still address that head coaching job in the minors, so let's try and get that done, because obviously that's kind of important for the development of the players down there. So let's go based off teaching grade instead, maybe, and we'll go for maybe this guy since he's got good teaching grade. Yeah, sure. Since you have a good teaching grade, at least we'll bring you in. You might not end up being the head coach, depending on fit, but we'll definitely bring you in just to see if you could help get these guys to grow a little bit more. Because like I said, the minors have been not growing the best, I feel like, in this series for the most part. All right, he's on board, so welcome aboard to Aldrich Herbis, or something like that. I don't know how it's pronounced. But, yeah, I think this team's going to look good still next season. I think Dunham jumping to where Hennessy was makes our offensive core not really change that much. Defensively, obviously, like I said, it was tough to bring back Norena, but I think we had to do it just because of the situation we were in. Okay, so we do still have our RFAs holding out a little bit. Let's get these guys a sign. Should be easy. $2 million bucks. Caleb Doig, take it. Thank you. Delisle, you're going to only want less than that probably, right? Oh, you want more than that. Okay, you could take it too. Mahalik, you are still trying to hold out. That's a bit expensive, but hopefully he's healthy this year. That's one thing I'm worried about. And I guess Harakala already accepted his extension, which is good. So should be able to get Delisle back. And we have everybody that we need. He decided to accept. Okay, I thought I saw reject for a second. I was going to be like, what are you doing? So, all right. So, like I said, our forward group should be good. Defense should be still strong. Maybe a little bit weaker. Depends if there was any drop-off or not. But let's see what we're working with for the upcoming season. So, wow, yeah, that top line's still great. I like it. I like it. Let's see. Roster moves. What do we got? So, goaltending, it says Giunta and Harakala. However, Mathers is better. So, like I said, Mathers and Harakala, I think, will duel it out for that backup job. Malkin is very close to becoming that backup as well, because he's a 77 now. So, yeah, Mathers and Harakala might honestly just duel it out the entire season as the backup goaltenders right now. But they're both probably going to be leaving the team at the end of the season. And then Malkin will be our backup potentially in 2 seasons behind Giunta, so that's an interesting development. Wasn't expecting Malkin to be up to a 77. Still listed as a minor starting goaltender too, so he's going to have an interesting season at the age of 21 in the AHL. Defensively, got Bell, Norena, Tulipov, Hunwick. Hutton's only a 78. Don't know why. He dropped down a little bit. He still listed as a top 4, and then we have Mahalik and Ackerstrom, so Ackerstrom likely will be the depth defenseman. Mahalik and Hutton will still play, obviously. Hunwick has got to be in that top 4. So Hutton might complain about his ice time a bit, despite being in his first season. So I'm probably going to have to give him first line penalty kill. And maybe he can become higher. Actually, he'll probably be in the top 6 pairing. I'm trying to think of how I could get more ice time. I think definitely PK is a good thing for him. And then I think also we could find another way. Doesn't have best offensive stats. He does have good shot power, though. Maybe I could get him on the PP, but I don't know if I will. So we'll make some decisions with that, but that's exactly who I wanted up here in the NHL. And then these guys could potentially be depth defenders if we need more depth. They actually are all listed as depth defensemen too, so if we run into any injuries in the NHL, we have a bunch of 76s and 75s and stuff that could come up. In terms of right wingers, we got Stelbitz, who's down to a 90. Ew. And he's an exact top 6 already? Oh boy, Josiah Stelbitz honestly could be a retirement in 2 years, maybe this season. I think he's going to retire at 36, but he already went down to exact top 6. So there's a good chance he's going to be one of those retirements that don't make it to 40, which is very unfortunate. But we already know at least we have another captain that will take over eventually, and I think Risto is definitely in line to take that captaincy afterwards, and Reina could be still an alternate. But Stelbitz, when his contract comes off the books, at least will give us a lot of money. He's actually a pending free agent in 3 years too, just like Norena. So, damn, that's actually kind of insane, man. Okay, well, there's that. Dunham on an 85. Doig is an 83. Patrick could be in the NHL, but right now it doesn't matter too much. Left wingers, Kollars, Delisle, Malak, Lambert, and Bure. I guess I could use Bure still as a depth option. That's fine. Risto, Kim, Peterson, Cashman, Heatley. Corso's pretty close, but not yet. All right, that's exactly who I would have in the NHL. All right, let's go best lines here and set it up. So first line, obviously, Kollars, Ristolainen, and Stelbitz. At least Stelbitz hasn't lost his X factors yet, but the fact he's only a top 6 is not good. And Risto's also only a top 6. Oh no. Both these guys are probably going to be retirement casualties sooner than expected. I thought maybe one of them could last longer than the 36, but if their potential's dropped off at their age of 33 and 34, I think they might start dropping rapidly quick, which is kind of scary. And then Kollars still has the elite potential. So Kollars is fine because he's only 31, but these two, might start to drop off. I don't know if their production will drop off, but they definitely might both retire around the same time. They both are only signed for 3 more years, too. So we have Ristolainen, Stovitz, and Arena all ending in the same season, which is kind of scary. I mean, I hope at least some of them are retired at that year. If they all retired the same season, that'd be pretty insane. But aside from that, let's get the rest of this set up here. So we have it set up the way we want. We'll go Delisle on this left side. Doigan to the third line. Okay, this looks not terrible. Who's scratched at the moment? Ackerson, Bure, that makes sense. Mathers, like I said, the goaltending in the preseason, would probably want to try both goaltenders. So Gionta will get scratched for the preseason, but Mathers and Harakala need to duel it out to see who's actually going to be the backup at the start of the year. Or we could just throw one into the lineup and then basically take the other one out like 20 games later. But yeah, this is an interesting situation. So obviously, like I said, Gianna won't play the preseason, but we could test out Mathers and Harakala. I could send one of them down, Mathers or Harakala, depending on who's worse, once the season starts. And then we need another depth forward, which probably I would lean towards Patrick or Corso as a depth option, considering they're both like a little bit older already. So that's probably what I would lean towards doing, something like that. In terms of special teams, this already looks good for the first unit. Ooh, that second unit's a -4. How is it a -4? Lambert maybe being on it? Damn, that's a friggin' really bad chemistry. Let's get Hunwick on there since he's a two-way. Maybe not. I don't know. Who's just not fitting this power play that well? Cashman, Peterson, and Dunham. God damn. It's not good. I need those guys all to get ice time, so I might not be too worried about that power play, to be honest. Penalty kill. Hutton's on the first penalty kill, so that's all I wanted to worry about, because I do need to get him ice time. And then extra lines, maybe I'd have to throw him in here at some point, but should be okay with his ice time, I think. Should be. Alright, so at least 5-on-5 we look good, but yeah, that power play chemistry is not great. Maybe we need to change our NHL head coach, not too sure though. And in terms of an AHL, 2 of mine it probably should be in, but he's not that great. Carlotti definitely needs to play over him. Maybe I won't even make any adjustments to his defensive core. Yeah, I think I'll just keep this the same, potentially. Yeah, let's just keep the AHL teams the same. But, yeah, okay, let's see. Let's see what our current coach's fit is. Because that's one thing I need to check. I know this episode's already over an hour again. Don't know how these episodes keep being over an hour, but won't complain. But Baines, 59% team fit. So Baines might not actually be good enough to be our head coach. We could definitely still use him because he's an A+ coach, but our coach is not necessarily the best option here right now. Wharton, let's see, what about you as an A coach? 60. Alright. And a Nielsen as a head coach was a 63, so Nielsen maybe could be the head coach based on that, but I'm not too sure if I want to adjust the coaches or not. Because Baines has got us to the conference finals multiple times, won a Stanley Cup with us, I think, right? So not too sure on all that. Alright, so there's the coaching stuff. Let's take a look at where our former guys signed to end off this episode, because I was going to leave it till next episode, but I know you guys are probably curious. I'm curious, so we need to know where Lee and Hennessy signed. Because, well, those were the big two that we let go of this offseason, I'd say. So, Lee, where did he sign? Oh, he signed with the Montreal Canadiens. All right, let me remove my face just in case there's any clauses involved and stuff. But Lee signed there on a 3-year deal at $4.39. No clauses available on that contract, but a $4.39 million contract. A little bit high, but it's not, I guess, terrible. But he will join the Montreal Canadiens, so he's at least in the Eastern Conference. And then the big one is, what did Hennessy get? Did Hennessy get any clauses involved? Did he get a long-term deal? Or is he going to be a free agent soon? Let's see. He signed with the St. Louis Blues. Oh, boy. So he signs in our division, I think. 84-26. $9.315 million. That's pretty expensive. For 4 years, no clause, though. So they could move him at any point, but Hennessy got some big bucks after only 2 NHL seasons, so shout out to him. At least he secured the bag. But like I said, I would have liked to hold on to a guy like him. And he actually was asking for way less with us. But the thing is, we have a little bit of a logjam on that forward side of things. So probably not the best idea to hold on to him. Especially when we have like guys like Dunham jumping up here a lot. So, but yeah, Rick Kim being a pending free agent at the end of the year is kind of a tough decision. Because we do have Stoubitz and Arena and Ristolainen are all up in 3 years. Kolar's is up in extra time after that, so yeah, a lot of our big guys are getting closer to the end of their contracts, so that's going to be an interesting dynamic. Hopefully Stoubitz retires before Ristolainen's contract runs out, because I do want Ristolainen back and I don't want to lose either one of them. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Albuquerque Aliens Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the start of the 2040-41 season. We'll definitely play around with our goalies in the preseason and see which goaltender is the better option for the backup job. But aside from that, I think our team's still looking pretty good on paper. And I'm excited to see what this team could do this season. Send anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.